once again, we come to say thank you for such a beautiful day here in Edgefield County. We did ask that you be with us and guide us as we go to this meeting on tonight, that we conducted in the manner that you'll be pleased with it, and that the citizens of Edgefield County be pleased with it. We just thank you, Lord Jesus, for the sunshine, and we thank you as well for the rain. And we just thank you after you take us through this year night, our first time of trying out our zeal tonight, but we just ask that you be with us and guide us. All these blessings acts in your name, we do pray. Amen.
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 If you would repeat after me. And Jennifer, can you put the picture up for us? We can try standing. If you want to stand, you can. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, Jennifer, thank you for getting that for us. All right, we do not have any guests. First of all, the first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we approve this agenda.
Okay, I think I heard Mr. Biggs made a motion, seconded by Mr. Talbert. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, and all the hands are up, so it's unanimous. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes, and we'll take them one by one. Is there any comments on the March 17th, 2020 budget work session minutes? All right, hearing none, I would approve those. Is there any comments on the April 7th, 2020 meeting of County Council? All right. Any, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion has been made by Vice Chairman Talbert, seconded by Dr. Kenyon. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, it is unanimous. All right, we do not have any guest speakers tonight. The next item on the agenda is comments from the public. These are for items that are on the agenda that are not a public hearing item. Jennifer, do we have any comments that have been submitted?
There were no comments submitted for the first public comment section.
Okay, thank you. On the reports, are there any comments on the reports? All right. Seeing none, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion for approval of tonight's consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
Motion has been made by Councilman Campbell, seconded by Dr. Kenyon. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, motion passes unanimously. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing. It's public hearing of ordinance number 1920-768, an ordinance providing for the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 general operating budget and establishing ancillary budgets for debt service, E911, administration, industrial park, solid waste disposal, victims' bill of rights, emergency medical services, road maintenance, tri-county solicitor, assistant solicitor, school resource officers number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, event security, sheriff's grants, clerk of court grants, pretrial intervention, SRO grant, and criminal domestic violence. Jennifer, were any comments submitted for the public hearing on the budget?
There were no comments submitted for the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to old business. First item under old business is exactly what I just read. It's second reading of ordinance number 1920-768, an ordinance providing for the fiscal year budget 2020 through 2021. And I would entertain a motion on this item for approval.
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, motion was made. The first I
Second.
heard was Mr. Biggs, seconded by Vice Chairman Talbert. I'd like to open it up for discussion. I know there is a memo from our administrator, Mr. Paradise, and I'd like to just ask if there's anything that you want to add to what we read in the memo.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, that would increase the what we bring forward from the fund balance, a considerable amount. This is all of these increases except for the $7,000 for the clerk of court's office. And I think that was coming from comments from the budget session that y'all would like to put that $7,000 back in. I had missed that in last month's budget revisions and called it in the mint when we reviewed the minutes. So I wanted to get that in there. The medically indigent fund is $9,859 less than what we had put in the budget, that's in the proposed budget now. So we would recommend decreasing that to $74,185,000. The other thing is coronavirus related. And I sent some information to council about that. What our revenues have projected when we were working on the budget in February and early March, I think in reality was going to be significantly different when we go into the new fiscal year because the economy has shifted so much. We were on about a 2% annual growth rate here in Edgefield County and was looking for substantial growth next fiscal year. In looking at the economy going forward, I think we're better situated than some counties. Counties that have business licenses, hospitality taxes, accommodations taxes, those that come directly from retail sales and services. Our real estate taxes and that type, those taxes will remain flat. So Arlene, the treasurer, the auditor, finance director, and I met. We went back over the projected revenues, and in the budget or in the memorandum to council, you see some projected revenue changes there. Basically what we did in a nutshell is we reverted everything back to what we received this year to keep those revenues flat and not project any increases. The only exception was that with that was a 20% reduction in the accommodations tax. And that was, we don't have a good rule of thumb there. What I've seen other counties do is 20 to 30%. We went with 20%. Of course, the accommodations tax is funneled back to us through the state for people staying in hotels and motels. And of course, that industry has been hit hard by the coronavirus. So that's why that projection is. But in a nutshell, we would be reducing motor carriers from 90,000 to 80,000, or a reduction in 10,000. The aid to subdivisions, we roll that back to the current year, which would be 1,167,158. We met 1,111,158. Accommodations tax from 150,000 to 120,000. The mini from 60,000 to 45,000. And building permits, which we were expecting to see boom this next year, from 225 estimated revenues to 200. And that totals an additional 136,000 in lost revenue. So to do that, to accommodate that, we were looking at moving, adding that to the portion that we had already brought forward from the fund balance. And that would total to be $258,462, which would leave 4.3 million in the fund balance, or about 4.6 months of operations. I did send another memo to council to prepare for next month. We anticipate several carryovers from this budget year that will come before you next month. Those are really revenue neutral. They would hit the reserve or the fund balance, but there are items that's not spent this year, so it would be a net zero there. But I did send you all that so you could be prepared for it and know about it going into this meeting. And that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So with the reductions, we're still projected, and it's really kind of an unknown with what we're facing now, but 4.6 months in reserves based on last year's keeping it equal.
Yes.
Okay. Motion was made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on consideration of approval of second reading of ordinance number 19-2768? Mr. Campbell.
I just wanted to say to staff, I appreciate what they did, going through and sort of turning these knobs to make sure that we have the money, conservatively speaking. I know staff always puts together a conservative budget, and we appreciate that. But I think turning the knobs back just a little bit, I think, is a very wise move, because none of us knows what the economy is going to do. So I just want to say I appreciate you going to this trouble to figuring all this out and helping us.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Please raise your hand. Mr. Biggs.
I don't want to be repetitive, but I do think there was it may have seemed difficult to follow, but what staff did, I would certainly second Mr. Campbell's remarks, and I'm sure all of us would. And so as far as, I think it falls in with what we've always done. We've always been fiscally conservative. And so I just would echo that. I want to appreciate all the hard work that was done by staff in such a short period of time. So we thank you, Tommy, and thanks staff.
Good. Any other comments? Please raise your hand. All right. Seeing none, all in favor of consideration of approval of second reading of ordinance number 19-2768, please signify by raising your hand.
We haven't made a motion to include Tommy's recommendations.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to rephrase that. The motion was made to approve second reading, and but it was seconded. So I make a motion that we amend the budget with the recommendations outlined in our memo here. So I made that motion.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Motion to amend it based on the memo here was made by myself, seconded by Vice Chairman Talbert. Is there any discussion on the amendment? All right, seeing none, all in favor of the amendment, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, motion to amend passes unanimously. Now to go back to the original motion of consideration of approval of second reading of ordinance number 19-2768. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, that ordinance second reading passes unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is consideration of approval of third reading of ordinance number 19-2767, an ordinance to amend chapter 4210 of the County of Edgefield County Solid Waste Ordinance. And I'll ask our county administrator if he has anything he'd like to add.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This would be the third and final reading. I think the ordinance takes effect upon approval by council which would move the responsibility to the county administrator. I have reached out, of course, this position will be a Class 3 law enforcement officer. I have reached out to the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy. They are currently closed because of the COVID-19. I have talked by email with the supervisor of certification and compliance. And when we get this, I will need to have a copy of the ordinance, signed ordinance, and a letter, which I've already drafted. We'll send that to the Police Academy or South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy when I get that signed copy, and then they can schedule, start working for a slot for us to have an employee to be trained there. But until we get that employee trained, it's still going to be a little bit before we're operational.
Understood. I would entertain a motion to approve third reading of ordinance number 1920-767.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion was made by Councilman Biggs, seconded by Dr. Kenyon. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing no hands raised, all in favor of approval of third reading of ordinance number 1920-767, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is a consideration of approval of a prioritized list of recommended projects from County Council to the Capital Project Sales Tax Committee. As you remember, in April, based on what was going on with COVID, we tabled that. And now that we have the technology for not only our council, but other commissions to meet via Zoom and invite public participation, this is simply being brought up as an option for us to consider making a recommendation for that committee to re-meet, to reconvene. And we did have a pretty significant list of ideas. I'm going to open it up with a recommendation. I'm going to make a motion that we just give them one item to consider for the capital project sales tax, and that is the new jail. We've talked about this a lot, and it's a desperate need for our county. So I would make that motion that we make a list, and that would be the only item on the list for them to reconvene.
I would second that.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
I think, I don't know if there was two people speaking. I think I heard Mr. Biggs second that. So I'll say I made a motion. It was seconded by Mr.
That's
Biggs.
fine.
I want to open it up now for any discussion. And we can discuss it as much as you all want. Mr. Biggs.
I know we said the county jail, would it be more appropriate? And I guess I would ask this as a general question, to make this the law enforcement center. I know we need money for the jail, but we also need money to, and I'm not sure whether this package included just the jail or whether it also included the need for expanding the sheriff's department and the magistrate's court.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Mr. Paradise.
Yeah, Mr. Biggs, when this draft was originally put together, the memorandum, we had not got the final report back from the space needs study.
Yeah.
We were anticipating 25 million for the jail, for just jail at that time. Now we can probably build that jail for 18 million. I forget the exact number, but both of them combined would be about 27.7 million plus the land. So for 30 million, you could probably do both of them, but that's a council decision on which way you want to go, whether it just be for the jail or be for the whole thing.
And just to go back, Art, I'm going to come right back to you.
Yeah.
What we're doing is we're recommending to the
Yeah.
commission. They can choose to add whatever they want to based on the, the percentages of what we think we will generate, which obviously is going to be less now with COVID than what we were projecting 2 months ago. And they're going to come back to us with that list. The other thing is we could add not just what you just mentioned, but I had several constituents say to me, why don't you include in your recommendation some broadband? Because that's also a need which has been highlighted with what we're going through now too. But I think the consensus was last month that if we just focus on one thing, we might be able to get this accomplished in 2020. But I'm going to turn it back to you, Art. And then if anyone else, when Art's done speaking, just raise your hand. Mr. Biggs.
Yeah, I understand what we're all facing. My concern lies that, and I understand the shortfall of the money. It's a matter of how would we move forward, which we may or may not have to. I mean, we have to build the jail. We know that. So I guess I'm sort of talking to myself also that I would have to recommend the jail. We need to find the land. And I just, because of total lack of knowledge on how we would proceed further, say this was passed and we were moving on the jail, and how would we proceed further on other needs in the law enforcement area? And that's just, I don't know if anyone can answer the question at this point, but I certainly favor the need putting this to the jail because we absolutely need the jail, whereas the others we need, but not as much as the jail.
Okay. Any other comments? Mr. Campbell.
And I agree with Mr. Biggs. My only comment is I would like to see us do a law enforcement center that is inclusive of all the things we just talked about. Because I'm not going to go into a dissertation or anything. I just think that reasonable people can look at our facilities. We've outgrown our magistrate's court. They don't even have a courtroom. So there's just a lot of pieces and parts to me. But if the Capital Sales Tax Commission in their wisdom comes back and says, we'll just give you a jail. Okay, I could live with that. But just for the record, I just want to say that this is the only thing I will vote for relative to this. There's tons of needs we could point out. Broadband is one. We could point out EMS. We could point out substations. We could do fire departments. There's lots of things we could do. But my position is going to be one thing and one thing only. And if the commission comes back with more than one thing, my vote will be no as far as putting it on the ballot. So I just want to make my position clear going into the committee and to everybody. Want to say that.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. Seeing none, I made a motion that we recommend one item to be placed on the list for the Capital Project Sales Tax Committee. I believe that was seconded by Mr. Talbert. No,
Mr. Biggs.
It was
I'm
odd.
sorry, Mr. Biggs. My apologies. And I actually did write that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so motion has been made, seconded by Mr. Biggs. All in favor of that recommendation and then asking them to come and reconvene, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item under new business is consideration of approval of resolution number 1920-1104, a resolution providing for an intergovernmental agreement between Edgefield and McCormick counties, whereby the two counties will jointly utilize Edgefield County's convenience center located at the intersection of US Highway 378 and State Road 19-67. And We do have an exhibit on that, but I'll ask our administrator if he has any comments he'd like to add.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This is one of the annual resolutions that we do. This has been in place since I believe it was 2002. And in any case, we split the cost of the operation of the convenience center there with McCormick County, and allows residents from both counties to use that facility. We did, in our budget this year, we did increase what we pay to our senior workers, the senior center, so that they could give the convenience center workers a pay raise. That resulted in about a $1,500 a year increase in the operations for this convenience center. And so we've asked McCormick County to share in that increase by an additional $750, and they have agreed to that. And other than that, this is the same as we have done in the years past.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So I would entertain a motion for consideration of approval of resolution number 19/2011-04.
So move, Chair. So move, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I heard Dr.
Second.
Kenyon first and seconded by Vice Chairman Talbert. Is there any discussion? Mr. Campbell?
You'd think I could go by without talking about something, right? So this seems easy, but there is one thing I want to ask the administrator and the attorney. It's not a big deal, but I'll call it housekeeping. So if you look at the actual resolution, sections 3 and 4 talk about we give them stickers to use on their cars. Well, in February, County Council eliminated the sticker program. So should we delete sections 3 and 4 from that resolution?
And that is something, Mr. Campbell, originally I did delete those two sections, and then I put them back in because that's what we normally have done. I don't know that we've been issuing the stickers to those residents, but we could certainly issue a sticker to them if that would make it easier and for the people at the convenience center or the people using the facility. Now, I'll let Andrew speak to the other issues and legalities and stuff.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking at this. Because it does say they shall deliver the stickers mutually agreed upon. Has the agreement been approved by McCormick County?
No, sir.
Okay. And do we have a deadline on this?
End of the month. End of June.
End of June.
Good. Dean, could you phrase that in the form of an amendment that we're going to amend this resolution to remove 3 and 4? And then I second it, or do you want to just table this and have it taken out and we'll vote on it in June?
I don't want to mess anything up. Let me ask the attorney and the administrator, do y'all have any issues? I mean,
I have no objection to removing those 2 paragraphs.
I don't have any objections to removing them either. If the resolution is continued, I don't know if that would give McCormick County time enough to have their hearing on it as well. We normally do ours in May and then they do theirs in June.
Yeah, I would recommend this amendment to delete those 2 paragraphs.
okay. Then it looks to me like it wouldn't affect the rest of the ordinance anyway. They're independent, so to speak.
Yes.
Okay, so hearing the advice of the administrator and our legal counsel, then, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to amend this resolution to delete sections 3 and 4.
I will second it. Is there any discussion on the amendment? All right. Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment to remove paragraphs 3 and 4 from the resolution, please signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Sorry for the delay. All right, now back to the original resolution as amended. Motion was made by Dr. Kenyon and seconded by Vice Chairman Talbert. All in favor of passing resolution number 1920-1104 as amended, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, resolution passes unanimously. Next item under new business is consideration of approval of extending the janitorial contract with Southern National Services. This is a routine item, but I'll ask the administrator if there's anything he would like to say.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have a contract for our janitorial services in our building, and they've been excellent to work with through my tenure here. They go have a year-to-year contract. We had the option of renewing that contract every year. I've spoken to them. They wish the contract to be renewed. It is at a price of $63,850 for the year. That is the same as we paid in the previous years. And this would be the 5th extension with Southern National Service, and we'd probably need to bid it out next year because of this is the last year for the extension.
Excuse me, could Tommy repeat that last sentence?
This is, we did, when the contract was originally done with Southern National Services, it was a year-to-year contract. It was a year contract, and then we have 5 years that we could do and extend it for 1 year 5 times. And this is the 5th time that we've done that. So this will be the last. We'll be going out to bid next year.
And okay.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion for consideration of approval of extending the janitorial contract with Southern National Services.
So moved.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, a motion was made by Councilman Campbell, second by Vice Chairman Talbert. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is consideration of approval of extending the HVAC contract with Coulomb Services Incorporated, similar but different. Mr. Paradise, do you have anything
Yes,
you'd like to add?
It's very similar. This is Coulomb Services. We contracted out with them a few years ago. We would recommend extending the contract for an additional year. And this would be the 3rd contract extension with them.
Okay. I would entertain a motion for consideration of approval of extending the HVAC contract with Coulomb Services.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Biggs and seconded by Mr. Talbert. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing no hands raised, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda, and there is a exhibit to this, consideration to approve a revision of salary classifications for the sheriff's office. And I'll ask the administrator if he'd like to explain the memo or add anything to it.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Let me first say that this does not change anybody's salary. All positions in county government are required by state law to be within a certain class, be classified, which means be in a salary range. Well, last year, we worked real hard, or council worked real hard on the starting deputies rate, or starting deputy's salary. And that increased a couple $1,000s. Well, by doing that, we inadvertently made the starting salary for a deputy higher than the starting salary for a corporal. So we got our pay grades a little out of whack. Our HR director has revisited the issue and has come back with a recommendation to change the salary classification for these particular positions to what's attached in the memorandum. And that would put, when you, no matter where you are, when you go from sergeant or from a sheriff's deputy, corporal, the pay grade would be higher in salary, as it should be.
Okay, thank you. There might be questions after the motion, but I would entertain a motion to approve a revision of salary classifications for the sheriff's office.
So moved.
Motion has been made by
Second.
Councilman Biggs and seconded by Vice Chairman Talbert. Is there any discussion or questions? If so, raise your hand. Mr. Biggs.
Yeah, I understand what was stated. And I understand that there is no fiscal impact for this upcoming year. The problem that I have is, I mean, it's not a big problem, but if we have somebody that presently is at their maximum in their area, well, then with this change, they would get a pay raise next year, would they not?
If there is somebody at their maximum salary, and I don't know that we have anybody that's maxed out.
Oh, okay.
If you are maxed out in your pay range, and we are giving a cost of living raise, I think it's only reasonable that that employee, no matter where that employee is at, would receive that cost of living raise regardless of where the ceiling is on the that pay grade. Otherwise, that employee has no incentive to do a good job, and we're saying the cost of living doesn't affect him or her.
Yeah, I don't think that was my question. And obviously it wasn't clear. If we have a corporal, no, let me back that up. If we have a sergeant or sheriff lieutenant, and he's at his max now, which would be max now, and this shit would be 51,611. If he's at his max now, and we've increased the salary classification by another $10,000, well, if he's at his max, he would get a cost of living. But now, if he's at his max and we've changed the classification, would he not get a salary increase? I'm not opposed to that. It's just a question.
He will only get the salary increase that are authorized in the budget that council's already approved on first and second reading. And that's one of the things that we looked at. All of the employees will fit within their current budget classifications.
Okay.
Classifications.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Biggs. Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing no hands raised, motion was made by Councilman Biggs and seconded by Vice Chairman Talbert. All in favor of approving the revision of salary classifications for the sheriff's office, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item is consideration of approval of first reading of ordinance number 1920-769. An ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of a general obligation bond series 2020 or such other appropriate series designation of Edgefield County, South Carolina in the principal amount of not exceeding $750,000, fixing the form and details of the bond, authorizing the county administrator or his lawfully authorized designee to determine certain matters relating to the bond, providing for the payment of the bond and the disposition of the proceeds thereof, and other matters relating thereto. This is a renewal of an existing bond, but I will, and we do have an exhibit And I'll ask the administrator if there's anything he wants to add.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. 5 years ago, Edgefield County took out a bond for vehicles. That bond is, we make the last payment on that bond in July. That last payment's for a little over $156,000. We did not include any patrol cars or vehicles in the bond for fiscal year 2021. So if there's any vehicles to be purchased, we need an avenue to do that. And that would be through this bond. Now, bond payment we will make in July will pay off the old bond that we currently have, and the new payment will come due in July of next year. What that'll do is basically keep it fairly revenue neutral, where the bond is for the same amount that we currently have and are making payments on. The only change in that payment may be the interest rate. We got on the current bond, we pay 1.5%. If it's 2%, we may pay a little bit more. If it's 1%, we may pay a little bit less. But other than that, it is revenue neutral. And it would be consistent with the payments that we're making now.
Okay, thank you. So I would entertain a motion for approval of first reading of ordinance number 1920-767, and ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of a general obligation bond series 2020.
So moved.
So movement, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I heard Mr. Biggs first and seconded by Mr. Talbert. Is there any discussion? If so, please raise your hand. Mr. Campbell.
For the administrator, I just want to make sure, of course, the bond says generically the word vehicles, but most often, if not exclusively, we buy sheriff's department's vehicles out of this bond. Is that correct?
This bond could be used for whatever council, it does not limit it to just sheriff's department. In the previous bond, we did that, or it was primarily the sheriff's department. There was a few other vehicles, but going forward, my thought process was that council would have the flexibility to pay for any vehicle out of this bond that they chose.
All right. The reason I point that out to council too is because, and I'm fine with the wording, but most often it's the sheriff's department. We're lucky this year that we finally sort of caught up, if you will, and for now we're okay. But there have been years where we've had to buy 3, 4, 5 cars in a year, and you put that in your budget. If you just figure $30,000 a car times 5 cars, you're spending $150,000. So it could be a budget buster. So I think it's important to have this bond because it already exists. So we're already paying it. We being us county taxpayers are already paying it. So I think it's a good way for us to have that ability to, particularly in the sheriff's department, as it probably will grow over time, to give us a chance to buy vehicles for it.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could address Mr. Campbell's comments.
Yes, sir.
Just a second. Actually, the sheriff's department did request about 4 vehicles. It's either 4 or 5 new vehicles this year that did not move forward in the budget process in anticipation of this bond renewal. So the requests are still there. This is just a way to fund it.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments or questions, please raise your hand. Mr. Biggs.
Tommy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that under this process, the vehicles to be purchased must be approved by county council, as opposed to approving dollars in the sheriff's budget for the vehicles that they've asked for. Is that correct?
That is not in the ordinance, but that is practice that I put in place, is that any purchase from this bond would come for approval by county council before we made it, whether that be a sheriff's department vehicle or some other vehicle. It is it's not in the sheriff's budget that is that he controls. County council still controls this bond.
Yeah, I think that gives council a little greater flexibility regarding vehicle myself.
All right, thank you, Mr. Biggs. Any other comments, please raise your hand. All right, seeing none, I just want to recognize Mr. Biggs. I know he has worked really hard on tracking the vehicles for the last few years, and I think we've done a great job there. So as it relates to approval of first reading of ordinance number 1920-769, motion was made by Councilman Biggs, seconded by Vice Chairman Talbert. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Sorry for the delay. All right, two more items. Next item on the agenda under new business is consideration of approval for payment of Edgefield County's 25% match to Edgefield County Water and Sewer Authority for the Murr Road Sewer Line Project. And there is an exhibit on that, Exhibit 7. I'll ask the administrator if he has any comments.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Last year, County Council entered into a memorandum of understanding with Edgefield County Water and Sewer Authority to put a sewer line or assist with financing of a sewer line out to Windsor subdivision. That's in this year's budget. There's $162,500 budgeted for that. Well, that sewer line has been put in, it's operational. The completed cost was $318,457.41. Our portion of that is $79,614.35. This is basically County Council authorizing me to pay a bill that we've already agreed to. We came in well under what we had anticipated. And as this, and I'll add that as this subdivision is developed, there'll be a sewer line extension fee on each house or each lot that's developed there. And that will pay this back to both Edgefield County and Edgefield County Water and Sewer Authority.
Yeah, so the reason I was smiling is I was noticing it was 50% less than what we budgeted. That's a good thing. And I appreciate the final comment that you made is that this is not money that taxpayers are spending. It's an investment that we get reimbursed.
Yes.
As new subscribers come online. So I would, and I should have saved those comments for the comment section. I'm sorry. I would entertain a motion for approval of payment of Edgefield County's 25% match to Edgefield County Water and Sewer Authority for the Murr Road Sewer Line Project.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
So move.
Okay, motion was been made by Vice Chairman Talbert, seconded by Councilman Campbell. Is there any additional discussion? If so, please raise your hand. All right, seeing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Last item under new business is consideration to authorize the county administrator to erect deaf child at play signage on each end of Cornet Drive. And there is an exhibit number 8 as it relates to this, but I'll ask the administrator if he'd like to add anything.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. During the March Planning Commission meeting, there was a public hearing about possible development off of Cornet Drive. During that meeting, there was a lady that one of her concerns about subdivision was that she lives on Cornet, has a deaf child, and is already afraid of the traffic that's out there on Cornet. Apparently, the Fox Creek students use it as a cut through to Highway 25, and there's a good bit of traffic on that road. When I heard that, I thought about this. After that, I believe Chairman Cooper had a conversation with her as well. What this would do is it would put the public on notice that there's a deaf child in that neighborhood, and so that they could use extra caution when traveling on that road. The cost of the signs can be paid for out of the County Transportation Committee. However, before we move forward on the project, we wanted to get council's approval.
Okay, thank you, Tommy. We'll come to discussion in a minute. I would entertain a motion to authorize the county administrator to erect deaf child at play signage on each end of Coronet Drive.
So move, Chair.
Second.
Motion is
Second.
made by Dr. Kenyon and seconded by Vice Chairman Talbert. Is there any discussion? If so, please raise your hand. I will just add, I did go out and tour that drive, and it is a very busy road. It's a cut through for Fox Creek, and I think this is a great thing that we're doing here. And I would just make one other comment for all of council in the Planning Commission. I know a lot of us have gone out to visit that development. If you have not yet, I would encourage you to do so, because that is coming up at the Planning Commission later this week, or next week, I'm sorry. Any other discussion, please raise your hand if you. All right, seeing none, all in favor of authorizing the county administrator to erect deaf child at play signage on each end of Coronet Drive, please signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is comments from the public on any items that are not on the agenda. Jennifer, did we receive any written comments tonight?
We received 2 comments for this section. The first one that we received is from Todd Latham on behalf of the Edgefield County Youth Soccer Association Board. He lives on Lake Fauchet, Edgefield. His comments read, Dear County Council and Administrator Tommy Paradise, in light of the suspension of spring sports in the county due to COVID-19 concerns, the Edgefield County Youth Soccer Association Soccer Board would like to propose that we officially cancel the spring season of soccer and make plans to carry on in the fall. To that end, we would like to further propose the following for the fall league. Children from the spring season be allowed to play in the fall at no cost, at no additional cost. Their spring fee will count towards their fall fee, as many children never got to play any games in the spring. Children who do not wish to play or cannot play in the fall will be refunded their spring season fee. All teams will remain intact for the fall season. As stated, many of the children do not get to play actual games, but they did practice and bond as a team in preparation for the season games. Coaches in the league have been consulted on this and in favor of this move. It will also save on jerseys as we could use jerseys from the spring season and only order more to cover any additional children who may register for the fall. Any additional children who register would be absorbed by existing teams, or if numbers warrant, new teams can be made. Allow any children who would have aged out this season to play in the fall. However, only those 14-year-old children who would have aged out would be allowed to stay for the fall season, and no new 14-year-old children would be allowed to register. Again, coaches in the old age division have been consulted on this and feel that it is a fair move for those children impacted. Additionally, this possibly involves only about a half of a dozen players. As this season presented unprecedented obstacles, we know that there may still be kinks to be worked out, but we feel the above proposal at least gives us a good starting point. We would like your support in implementing this so that we may begin to focus on making our fall season another successful season. Thank you. Signed, the Edgefield County Youth Soccer Association Board. Those members include Philip and Tiffany Ireland, Brent Pearson, K.T. Taylor, Todd Latham, Jason Irwin, and Kevin Hall. The second comment that we got is from Mark and Dana Arball. They live on Windy Ridge Road. Their comments read, the paving of Windy Ridge has been on the agenda several times to be paved. It is our understanding that it has actually been approved and budgeted to be paved several times in years past. It is also our understanding that one citizen at 190 Windy Ridge was holding up unanimous approval for it to be paved. Ironically, when a portion of it was paved recently, it was paved to the citizen's driveway at 190 Windy Ridge. So they have the benefit of driving on pavement all the way to their home. There are 2 curves on Windy Ridge where cars cannot pass each other. In these curves, if a school bus is coming, the driver has to stop to let the bus pass. This is dangerous for school-age children who must ride the bus. Avoiding injury to children should be a priority of the county. Windy Ridge has huge washout areas when it rains, and the rain makes portions of it extremely slick. After it rains, the road is very rough until the next time that the motor grader scrapes the road. The county is also spending funds for gravel to be brought in and spread repeatedly during the year. There is a huge clump at the railroad track that has caused several trailers to get hung on the tracks. The possibility of a collision with a train is dangerous. There should be a gradual ascent or descent to the tracks. Dirt will not hold at the tracks, but pavement would alleviate this problem. In one of the narrow areas of the road, our daughter was run off the road when meeting another car. This led to the struts having to be replaced on her car. Thankfully, our daughter was not injured and a possible lawsuit was avoided. We have several nice vehicles that we pay high property taxes on, and they are being beaten and torn up by the dirt road. This has become a high traffic road. It is dangerous for drivers, school buses, and children, and needs to be paved as soon as possible. Thank you for your time and consideration. We look forward to receiving your comments. Signed, the Arballs. And that's all that I have for the public comment section.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer, for reading those. We do not have an executive session tonight, obviously. And
Scott, excuse me. A question for Jennifer. She
yes,
said 190 Windy Ridge Road.
That is where the pavement ends. That's where Windy Ridge has been paved up to 190.
Okay,
That is not this couple's address.
okay.
yeah, and Jennifer, if you would just, I know these comments will be in our minutes, but if you could go ahead and forward those to each one of us, that would be great.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you. That way we can read it in its entirety and respond also.
Okay.
There's no executive session. I'm gonna ask our county administrator now for his report.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, as council's aware, COVID's still here. We have 32 confirmed cases in the county with an estimated number of 197 cases. This doesn't sound like a lot, but whenever you break that down to per 100,000, we actually have a higher infection rate in Edgefield County than the county of Charleston. So it is here, it is affecting what's going on in the county, and it's something that needs to be considered when we go out and about. Particularly the Johnston area has a high level, that zip code has a higher level than the other ones in the county. It was interesting that I got that Ireland's and the soccer board had comments. I talked with Nick, our recreation director, yesterday about the possibilities of spring sports, and was it time to cancel those, or what should we do? And his recommendation was to wait till June, and that the Dixie Youth League is still assessing whether they're trying to get a season in, and that he had talked with, my understanding was that he had been in touch with the soccer board and they were okay with that as well. So I was a little surprised with the comments received this evening by the soccer board. As you know, Bettis Park, the county library, Sweetwater Community Center, and the county archives are still closed. There's discussions with various elected officials going on when we should start the opening process for our county buildings to the public and resume normal operations. One of our issues there is once you come into our buildings, the way they're laid out, it is very difficult to keep a 6-foot space. There would be one room for one person in the treasurer's office, one person in the auditor's office, one person in the office. So that's something that we're looking at and we're talking about. And unless council thinks different, I don't know that we're there yet. I would rather err on the side of safety before we open back up. The first 4 welcome to Edgefield County signs have arrived. I talked to the sign maker today, and installation should start on Friday. These will be installed on Martintown Road at Aiken County, Highway 25 North at Greenwood County, Bettis Academy Road at Aiken County, and Highway 121 in Saluda County. We've also got approval for 3 of 4 other locations from SCDOT. Those are for the next 4. Those would be Highway 378, McCormick County line, Highway 19 at Aiken County line, and Highway 25 at Aiken County line. We've got approval for those. The 4th location is Highway 23 at the Saluda County line. I think that's going to be putting that sign in front of a property that's fairly well maintained, and DOT wants us to reach out and get authorization from that property owner before they'll sign off on the encroachment permit there. Staff is in the process of doing that. The Planning Commission meeting in April was canceled because of COVID-19. They're scheduled to meet virtually on May the 14th with public comments submitted to Kevin Singletary by 12 noon on May 14th. We have changed all of the signage for the Planning Commission to reflect that. With staff, there was also at the March meeting, there was also a large crowd there about the project on Cornet Road, off of Cornet. Staff will be sending the letters to those that signed up to speak at that Planning Commission meeting in March to advise them of the virtual meeting and the public comment requirements. What we want to do is get as much notice out there so those people can have their comments to the Planning Commission and not be blindsided by a virtual meeting. And the meeting will also be streamed live on YouTube, same as we're doing here. And I talked to Kevin today, and those emails that they may receive about any particular application will be read into the record just as Jennifer has been doing here. The land management ordinance is progressing. The chapter drafts have been sent to the steering committee. Excuse me?
Well, my screen froze for a minute. I apologize.
I'm sorry. The LMO committee will be meeting Thursday night, same as we're meeting here. And we missed the April meeting. We're having 2 meetings this month to make that up. The other thing we've been working on is the census. COVID has had its fingers in that too. As of today, Edgefield County has a census response rate of 48.3%. Now, about a week or 2 ago, that was down to around 43, 42%. So we're moving in the right direction. It's still below the state average of 51.2% and the national average of 56.6%. We are number 24 of 46 states or counties in the state in reporting. So that puts us in the bottom half by 1. We need to move that notch up, at least. So we're working to improve this response. Staff put flyers in 2,155 school lunches that was delivered by the school district to students. 2,000 flyers to area businesses for distribution in there as people shop, and they can put them in the bags when they check out. And the chairman will be sending out a letter to the faith community this week to seek their help in improving the response rate as well. And Mr. Chairman, that's my report.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I just want to open it up to council, see if they have any questions or comments for you. If you do, please just raise your hand. Mr. Campbell?
For the administrator, back to the soccer thing, you know, we've had comments on that twice now in the past, 2 or 3 meetings. So does council have a role in this at all, or is this between soccer board, the recreation commission, the recreation director?
And I think council could certainly take a policy position on that, as to let us know that this is a direction that you want to go. I think council had moved that they wanted to have the county to have more oversight on those operations. I would like to review. I'm like Scott, if I can read that email instead of hearing it over to Zoom, I can analyze it a little bit better for any concerns that staff may have. But this is an issue, to be honest with you, if we decide to suspend those activities, all of our sports activities, it was my plan in June to come back to council for that authorization and a reimbursement plan of how we would make those that had signed up and didn't get to play. How do we make them whole, and the county not lose a lot of money on the process as well from the equipment and stuff that we purchased. So I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Yeah, I think so. So I'm not trying to bring it to council. I mean, it's the second time it's come up. So I'm just trying to make sure. I assume it would be handled by the board involved and the recreation commission and the recreation director and ultimately you as an administrator. But if we need to get involved, then we need to put it on the agenda and get involved. But if we don't, then we don't.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments, please raise your hand. All right, seeing none, Tommy, I want to thank you and the entire team through the time period that we're going through. I know I want to ask a couple questions as it relates to COVID and distancing and having our doors closed, but meeting them at the door or by appointment. Are you aware of any constituents not receiving the service that we provide that have been inconvenienced? I mean, we're still providing the services. It's just a little bit more challenging.
It is. I'm not going to say that we have been inconvenienced, but it is a change from the way that we do things. Now, some, like the treasurer's office, may not want to go to the door and get money. There's some things there, but we have been providing the service. We put the drop box out there so people can leave their funds there. I don't see us in a critical role. We're getting the job done, is I guess what I'm trying to say. And I haven't heard where the public is unhappy with that here in Edgefield County.
Okay. I mean, that's really the nutshell. I wanted to hear if you had heard of any dissatisfaction. I think this is raising our game, for everybody in terms of how we're going to operate in this new world. We're learning as we go. So tonight is an example. A second question I had for you is, as it relates to the signs, I'm glad that we've got 4 going up. And what's the balance, and do you think we will get that done by the end of the fiscal year?
Well, let me go back to your first question just a second and expand on that for a minute. By keeping our doors closed, I believe it's helping our employee morale. They're feeling safer, and that goes a long way in having a good workplace. As far as the signs go, and the carryover expenses that I sent to you, the reason it's not on there is the first 4 was purchased first four, it's got the administrator's budget, because we didn't have quite the 90,000. Then now we have 75,000 in an escrow account set aside just for the signs. So that wouldn't be a carryover expense that needs to be budgeted next year. That $75,000 is sitting there in that fund balance waiting to be used. And the next four will start drawing down that fund balance.
So I'm going to interpret that, make sure I'm hearing what you're saying is, since it's in the balance, it doesn't have to be executed by the end of the fiscal year. The money's there.
Correct. It's in an escrow account.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's the only question. Any other questions for the administrator? All right, seeing no hands raised, I'm just going to add a couple of quick items. I really just want to say thank you to the entire team that has raised their game, but specifically, I want to mention Jennifer from the council's office, and Jennifer Gilly and Kevin Singletary from the planning office, who worked very hard to get all of us. They met with each of us individually to get us technologically ready for tonight's meeting. And not only just to get us ready, but to actually get the system operating, where I think we're live stream right now and people could be watching us. Jennifer, do you know how many are actually watching us?
We currently have 9 watching, I believe.
Okay, and this is something that's great for transparency and communicating with our constituency. And I think that's about average, really. We generally have less than 10 people at a public meeting, so having 9 or 10 people watching is a good thing. I want to again thank you for investing the time to make it happen. I want to thank those that are watching now or later, and encourage you to actually subscribe to the YouTube channel that is Edgefield County Government. Once you subscribe, if you have a YouTube account, you'll get an email when Jennifer or someone else posts future meetings. And we already have the next 3 meetings, 3 or 2 that are scheduled. 2, one is the LMO and one is the Planning Commission, correct? Okay, so it's really important for our constituency that cares about following government that you subscribe, so you get the notification ahead of time. The other thing that I wanted to communicate is obviously during this time, we can't have you in the building with us to make those comments. We still want the comments, so just send them to us ahead of time. It needs to be by noon, the day of the meeting. For council meetings, it would go to Jennifer Gilly and the chairman of county council, which right now happens to be myself. For the LMO meetings, it needs to go to Kevin Singletary. Do they have a second individual, Jennifer? Okay, so send it to Kevin Singletary. And I would say whoever gets elected as chairman of the Capital Project Sales Tax Committee, and because they've been asked to get back together this month, you can send it to that chairperson so that your comments go to them as well.
I would recommend those CPST comments come to me, since it'd be a county email. The chairman of that board won't be a county employee.
Yeah, okay, that's a fair point. So send them to Tommy Paradise, tparadise@edgefieldcounty.sc.gov, and he'll make sure they get printed and sent on. Finally, I'm going to make two last comments. The census is incredibly important. As Tommy mentioned, we did the notification to the students packets, and we're reaching out to the faith-based community. I think there's 200 letters that are going out this week. Your personal sphere of influence, please engage those folks to take part in the census. It's very important for our future funding and the future development of our county. And then I just want to wish each one of you the best as we continue to navigate this time period. And I in particular want to lift up the family of Charlie Derrick, who was in an accident this morning, and 2 of our team members were impacted by that. The probate court judge and the clerk of court, and an employee there. So we just lift up that family in our prayers tonight as well. So that's all I have. I'll entertain if you have any additional comments or questions, please raise your hand. Mr. Biggs.
Scott, this just entered my mind. I know it's been hanging out there. Did we ever send the letter off to the railroads in Atlanta requesting that they said they were going to develop a valuation? We were going to send in our letter, not offer them any money, but ask them what they considered an appropriate valuation for railroad beds. Did we ever finish that?
Art, thank you for that reminder, and know that that is an item that still needs to be done.
Okay.
Any other comments? All right. Seeing no hands raised, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
And I will second it. Motion was made by Councilman Talbert, seconded by myself. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. And motion passes unanimously. You all have a blessed night. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night all. Good night all.
Good night.